So after this week's game, I've noticed that some people were fired up about Freddie Kitchens or fired up about um, the inability to run the ball this week. But to me, it's kind of hard for me to have an impassioned feeling about this game or a change of mind about Freddie Kitchens when this is the exact result that I expected this week. This is exactly what I thought the Cleveland Browns were going to do. I didn't think that the Browns are going to have any answer for the Ravens offense, which 31 other NFL teams so far have not had. And I thought that the Browns were going to struggle to run the ball, but we're going to have some success through the air. And that's what they had this week. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen. So, in order for me to have my mind change, that's the exact thing I thought was going to happen before this game happened. So, why, when the expected result happens, would my mind be changed? Yeah, did Freddie Kitchens make some Freddie Kitchens calls? Of course. The 3rd-and-1 trick play, Freddie Kitchens call all the way. I was in the stands, and I actually predicted that that was exactly what Freddie was going to do, kind of in a joking way, but also knowing Freddie Kitchens and his tendency to do things like that are way too elaborate, that are way too cute, in situations that don't necessarily need it, but, also, it should be noted that this team sucks at running the ball for a yard. The short yardage situations, this team sucks. I don't care if Nick Chubb's there. I don't care if Kareem Hunt's there. I don't care if it's a first down. I don't care if it's on the goal line. The personnel, this team sucks at short yardage situations. No matter who's in the game, no matter who they're running behind, no matter what type of run play that they do, this team just sucks at those situations, and they should probably avoid running the ball on obvious run situations in short yardage situations because they're terrible at it. That's why the Buffalo Bills were able to stop them 7 times at the goal line, because ultimately the Browns are terrible at short yardage situations, and it probably has a lot to do with the personnel on the offensive line, and it partly has to do with Nick Chubb. Is while Nick Chubb has the build of a great short yardage back, he is not great in short yardage situations. He tends to bounce outside too much. These are just the habits of Nick Chubb that you'll live with because he's Nick Chubb. But you also have to understand that Nick Chubb is not great in certain situations, and it does make more sense to have Kareem Hunt out there in short yardage situations because his habits are better for those situations. But nonetheless, the avalanche of Fire Freddie has started to happen. It seems like that is the popular opinion. And one thing that came along that is going to assist that avalanche, and I think somewhat unjustifiably so, is this OBJ, Freddie Kitchens, and I'm going to put in air quotes, fight that happened on the sidelines that a lot of people are going to depict as another time where last week Jarvis Landry was screaming at Freddie Kitchens, and this week Odell Beckham is screaming at Freddie Kitchens, presumably about the play call. Now, I'm going to say I'm going to have to debunk that because I was at the game. I was watching Odell on the 2-point conversion, the play that happened that resulted in that argument. And here is exactly what I saw. I saw Odell Beckham. He ran a slant towards the middle of the field, in the middle of the end zone. And it was a closely contested route. You could say he got held. I could see where Odell felt he got held, but I don't think a flag was necessary. But nonetheless, Odell Beckham thought a flag was necessary on the play, started chirping about the refs with it. And then I think it was Marcus Peters who was covering him, started saying something to him. That really lit Odell Beckham up. He was angry. He started chirping at Marcus Peters, and then you saw an offensive lineman, I believe it was Greg Robertson, one of the offensive linemen, start to run towards Odell and kind of restrain him back and get him to the sidelines. And that's where Odell threw the helmet. He was upset. He was fired up about the refs in that play. And then I think Freddie kind of asked, what's going on? Like, why are you freaking out right now? Are you all right? And Odell went in very emotionally and animatedly, was complaining about the situation with the refs. I believe he was saying he's holding me every time, with some expletives thrown in between. that really seems like what the situation was. And then even after the game, Odell Beckham said that he was kind of upset about the refs and the calls, and he felt like he was getting held a lot, and that's really what led to that blow up on the sideline. So again, people are going to paint this as Odell's mad that he didn't get the ball or anything, which is ridiculous because it came after an Odell Beckham touchdown in the red zone. But however ways people paint this, I was at the game. I saw the whole situation, and that is the full context provided. However you want to take that information is up to you, but that is the absolute context of that whole argument. So take that for what it's worth. I don't think it's a big deal. I think that kind of thing happens on the sideline every week on almost every team in those kind of situations. Wide receivers think they get fouled, especially if you're Odell Beckham. You do get fouled a lot. And he was just upset he didn't get the call. And that Marcus Peters, who's a known agitator, probably said something to piss him off, and, that kind of led to that. But let's talk about Freddie Kitchens and his job security. It seems like if this decision were up to the fans, Freddie Kitchens would have been out of here yesterday. But the decision's ultimately not up to the fans, and Freddie Kitchens' job security is an interesting question because as it stands, if he starts slow, it's going to become an untenable situation for him at home games, as this fan base has kind of decided they want nothing to do with Freddie Kitchens and that they're going to blame him for the bulk of the disappointment of the 2019 season. Now, some of that is fair. Some of the play calling has been bad. It has been easy to point at Freddie Kitchens. Some of it is unfair. I felt like Freddie Kitchens, he had the one bad play call there on 3rd and 1. But for the most part, going for 2, I didn't mind the decision, and I thought it was a good play call that they went with at the goal line there. I think Ricky Seals-Jones has to catch that ball to get the 2-point conversion. But, I don't mind the decision there. I know some people were like, we'll make it a 1-possession game. But to me, you had to get the 2-point conversion anyways. Why not try to get it when you move the ball as fast down the field as you have all season on that play? It seemed like they were executing a lot better. So it just made more sense to me to go with the momentum there for the 2-point conversion. And honestly, going for the 2-point conversion, if it theoretically came up at the end of the game, I think is as big as a crapshoot there because, this team sucks in the clutch. So asking them to not only get a clutch touchdown and a clutch 2-point conversion, I mean, for a team that is absolutely dreadful in those situations in the clutch, I would have preferred that they got it at the less tense situation. But, that is a debatable one. The 3rd and 1 reverse play call, that was stupid. That was dumb. I felt like you probably could have just threw the ball to Jarvis there and you would have got the first down. I didn't feel the need to do something so complicated that you couldn't even go for it on 4th down if you want it and you lost 5 yards. That was dumb. And I feel like the leash is so short with Freddie and the fuse is so short with the fans and Freddie that it's untenable at the moment, and I don't know if that's going to factor into his job security. But, if we're looking at this like I try to do objectively, I don't know if it's necessarily fair that Freddie gets fired at the end of this season when coaches who, let's say he wins in Cincinnati, have 7 wins, rarely in their first year as a head coach, rarely get fired after 1 year. The one guy who did get fired after 1 year with a better record than Freddie was Marty Schottenheimer at 8-8, and that was by Washington and Dan Snyder. And that's not necessarily the example you want to follow. I think the Jets had somebody resign after 7-9 before, but again, not franchises you really want to follow in the footsteps of. So I think there's a lot of context to take in mind. I know people are hot about Freddie Kitchens. I know they want him fired, and I know that's the popular public opinion. I'm kind of going against the grain here, but I think at this point, it's kind of hard to look at things objectively when it comes to Freddie because so many people are just on the train to fire him that anything he does gets interpreted in the worst possible way for him. So, he has the opposite of benefit of the doubt right now. And, that comes with some of the decisions he's made early in the season. And like Bomani Jones says a lot, credibility is a whole lot like insurance. You don't need it until you need it. And right now, Freddie Kitchens has no credibility with the fans. I'm interested to see what the situation is in the locker room, because if that situation is as bad as it is in the stands, then I don't see it being possible for Freddie to come back. But if it's not, then that opens up a lot of different doors. Now, who to blame for this loss, right? Because there's always got to be somebody. And I think this is as much as a group loss as it's been. Like, I think the Browns played hard. I don't think that they came in as flat as they did against Arizona, but I think everybody played a average to below average game. I think you didn't get a terrible game out of anybody, but you got average games out of most everybody. Baker Mayfield, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, under 200 yards, and then he really should have had 3 interceptions. So, average game for Baker Mayfield. Not great. Didn't really step up and play big. You had Jarvis Landry, didn't really have a great game. Odell Beckham had an average game for Odell Beckham. And Nick Chubb had his first bad game of the season. And this was a bad game. I don't think there's an excuse. Much like the games where Baker Mayfield goes out there and throws 3 interceptions, like, it doesn't matter to me if they went off of wide receivers' hands. If he throws 3 interceptions, it's a bad game. Nick Chubb had 3 yards a carry with 15 attempts and 45 yards. That's a bad game. 15 attempts, like, that's 4 off his normal average. It's 4 off of what most backs gonna get. Most backs get 19 carries. He got 15, 3.3 yards a carry and 45 yards, no touchdowns. That's a bad game. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, and I know that, Nick Chubb has the benefit of the doubt, and people want to defend Nick Chubb, and that's fine and dandy. I don't have a problem with that. He's certainly earned a level of defense, but to the level of defending that goes with Nick Chubb when he just simply had a bad game, it's kind of astonishing. People are bringing up these different types of runs that they believe that the Browns are doing that are holding back Nick Chubb, and that they're not running the right run plays, and that they're always running to the edge, when the truth of the matter is that Nick Chubb is a edge running back. He likes to get to the edge. He will cut and go to the edge, and sometimes that will be great, and sometimes it's not good, and that's why Nick Chubb is not good for certain situations and good for other situations. So you have to keep that in mind with Nick Chubb, that he's not perfect, but he's very good at what he's very good at. And part of that is understanding that Nick Chubb's not really a up-the-gut runner. I know he's big. I know he looks like an up-the-gut runner, but his instincts and everything that he's good at is not going up the gut. He's an on-the-edge, downhill runner. That's what he likes to do. And against Baltimore, he wasn't going to get the edge and able to go downfield. They were too good at stopping that. Their linebackers were disciplined and did a good job at stopping him when he went on the edge. So I see somehow Freddie Kitchens being blamed for Nick Chubb not having a good game. That's not true. That's not accurate, and that's not the right way to look at the situation. Like, even with Baker Mayfield, sometimes the criticism goes so deep that we're complaining about specific route structures. And with Nick Chubb, we're complaining about different run plays that we're running that aren't the right run plays. And when have we ever gone to this level of criticism to avoid putting the bad game on the player itself? When Baker throws 3 interceptions, Baker had a bad game. When Nick Chubb goes and runs for 3 yards per carry, that's awful. That's bad. Good running backs got to get past the 3.5 yards per carry mark. He did not today. He did not play good. He had his first bad game. He probably have a good game against Cincinnati. It's not that big of a deal, but acknowledge that Nick Chubb was not having a good game, and that maybe running the ball 30 times this week wasn't going to be a great idea, because Nick Chubb just wasn't able to get off against the Baltimore Ravens like he did in week 4. But, again, that's where I talk about the avalanche of Freddie Kitchens. Nothing Freddie Kitchens can do is right. He didn't run Nick Chubb enough, even though Nick Chubb didn't have a good game. The only way this team was really moving the ball was through the air, and, even that was iffy. And we also got to face fact that the Baltimore Ravens are the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, and the Cleveland Browns are a team with 6 wins. And the Browns played a game where most of their players had average games, and playing an average game was not going to beat the number one overall seed in the AFC, and that wasn't going to be enough to do it. And the Browns just flat didn't play good enough to beat an extraordinary opponent. That's the truth of the matter. We can point fingers, we can blame it on one individual, which is silly, but it's not the truth. The truth of the matter is that the Browns played, the team played an average game, an average to okay game. The defense actually played much better than I anticipated. But that's not going to be good enough to beat the best team in the NFL right now. So that is the situation that it is, and it's hard for me to be upset about that. And then we have the Mark Ingram injury. That was concerning if you're a Ravens fan or just a fan of football. Mark Ingram's been a huge part of what they do on and off the field, and his addition to that running back group has been huge for the Baltimore Ravens. So it is going to be interesting to see how bad of an injury it is. It was a non-contact calf injury off a cut, which is concerning because that's the kind of injury that Kevin Durant had, that ended up being an Achilles injury after a while, or ended up turning into an Achilles injury when he came back. So the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to be cautious. I'd be surprised if he played next week against Pittsburgh. There's really no reason for him. And I'd be surprised if he played after the bye. I think the Ravens are going to have to take this one and be careful with it, because if they rush him back, he could have an Achilles tear. And for a guy the age of Mark Ingram, that kind of injury ends his career. That he doesn't come back from that. So hopefully the Ravens take their time with that and allow him to heal properly, because I don't want to see somebody's career get ended. And the way that injury looked, non-contact, and it's being reported as a calf, it just reminds me so much of the Kevin Durant thing, and even of the Andrew Luck thing in the offseason, where it ended up retiring Andrew Luck inadvertently. So again, hope Mark Ingram just had a minor injury there. No reason to wish ill will on him. And I hope it's not what it looks like, but it certainly does look very similar to the Andrew Luck and the Kevin Durant situation of last year. And also another note, if you're a Ravens fan watching this, why are the Ravens running Lamar in like the fourth quarter of this game with 3 minutes to go when they obviously have it in the bag? I understand wanting to continue to run the offense and make sure Lamar makes his reads, but man, if Lamar's taking a couple hits there that just aren't necessary. And I'm not one of these people who are worried about him getting injured so frequently, but it's just not a good idea to have your quarterback take hits. Even Freddie Kitchens gets criticized when he has Baker drop back the pass in a blowout victory or a blowout loss, because it's just, why have Baker take the hits? Why have your quarterback take the hits potentially? So that was weird to see that they were still having Lamar do design runs up into the late part of the fourth quarter. And that probably indicates that they're going to run him a lot in Cincinnati. Well, not Cincinnati, but in Pittsburgh next week. And, I hope he doesn't get injured, but it doesn't seem like the Ravens are being, I don't want to say smart, but it doesn't seem like they're thinking about the future when they make some of these calls here, and that can be concerning because a running back or a quarterback who does run the ball often, one play can result in a serious injury, and those kind of serious injuries, when they happen to players who can run the ball like Lamar does, really takes a lot from their game. So why risk that even happening when you don't really need it to happen? But that's their decision to make. If that's how they feel like they can carry their momentum, then they'll do it. But at the end of the day, the Browns lost this game to the Ravens because the Ravens were the better team and the Browns did not play up to their level. We could blame that on a lot of things, but that's just the truth that happened there. But let me know your thoughts down below. If you want to vent about Freddie Kitchens, feel free to. If you're just mad about Freddie, let it out. If you're mad about Baker, let it out. If you're mad about Odell, let it out. let your frustrations out in the comment section down below. But that's going to be my recap for this week. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.